website through utilizing a little bit of traditional media and looking at different ways to overall improve the reach your company has or your organization has to different audiences. And with that, we try to engage a whole bunch of different tactics and a whole bunch of different strategies. And I'm going to start with a couple quick questions. How many of you here own your own business or are part of a business that you manage? Fantastic. You know, I have a confession. I'm 39 years old, and I bought my first new vehicle. Sticker on it and everything. It was actually parked inside the auto dealership. Oh, I was thrilled. Odometer that actually read 00000. That was fantastic. I was 16 again. You need something taken? Oh, wonderful, I'll drive. We had a client that needed a huge print delivery made, and it was one of the most incredible things in the world. They actually used a forklift and put it in the back of my truck. Oh! You could feel the testosterone pumping through my veins. And this happens more often than not with a lot of business owners, purely with one thing. How many of you in the last 12 to 18 months have built a new website? It's fun. You've got a new website. You want to use it. You want to market it. You want to put things out there. But you know what? How often does this happen with your new car? How often do you have your brand new website and you don't have time to update it? You don't really remember how to update it. What do I update it with? Somebody said Facebook. What does that mean for my business? And we like to make a joke. Websites are a lot like children. Everybody has fun making them, but the real work begins once they're born. The real work begins once they're born, because once you launch a website, all the work that you've put into it in the weeks and months ahead of time, that's where it really gets tough. When are you scheduling the time to make your website updates? When are you finding the time to get new pictures, update things? Oh, we have a wonderful trade show event coming up. Did you promote it? Did you put it on there? Did you take pictures of your booth? And so a lot of times when we start working with clients, a lot of times that we hear one of the top 5 website issues. I don't get enough visitors to my website. How many of you have said that statement? Honestly. I don't get a lot of sales from my website. My website doesn't show up on Google. I mean, honestly, how many said you? And if you said Yahoo or Bing or something like that, just quit now. I don't or can't update my website. Out of all of you who built a new website in the last year, can you update it yourself, yes or no? Do you update it yourself?
No. It's still new.
And so, one of the other big challenges is so many of the websites are built with tools that allow you to do something called blogging. Oh, it's a curse word for a lot of business owners. And the number one thing we hear is, well, I don't have anything to say. I don't have anything to put on there. And that's going to be one of the things that we'll talk about today is every business has something to say, whether you're making plain beige widgets or you've got the coolest thing since digital watches. your website can be used as a very, very poignant marketing tool. And we look at things, and a lot of times with websites, we'll put a lot of effort into building a website, into finding that needs analysis, going through the process of finding all the tools you need to have a fantastic website. But a lot of times we'll get businesses and organizations that come to us that have built a new website but maybe didn't get all the tools that they need. And so one of the things that we ask on a regular basis, does your website have a content management system? Is it powered by WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, Expression Engine, Movable Type, and the list goes on and on and on, Concrete 5. There's a whole ton of platforms out there, but it all boils down to a simple question. Can you update your website on your own? Does your website have a call to action? If your website is just another copy of the brochure you set out at chamber events and things you drop in the mail, well, where's your call to action? If I go to your website, what do I do? We live in a social world. Social media has, whether you like it or not, been completely ingrained now into our culture, into our fabric of life. The average Facebook user will make updates 6 to 8 times a day. Most of the time it's from their mobile device. And so you're part of that community, whether you like it or not. Do you have a business? Yes. Someone's talking about you. How well are you connected to them? Are you participating in that conversation? But also, and we'll get into this in a little bit more detail a little bit later, the simple question of data gathering. One of the biggest things that everybody asks about marketing, especially web marketing, is what's my ROI? And that can be one of the biggest traps. What is my return on investing in marketing? And in all honesty, how often did you turn around and say, well, what's the ROI of my Yellow Page ad? Were you able to answer that question? Probably not. But yet you'd write blindly a check out for thousands of dollars per year to put your ad in the Yellow Pages. So one of the things that good websites will have right now is data gathering, Google Analytics, something that will tell you in very disturbing detail exactly who's been to your website, where they're from, how long they stayed, what pages they looked at, what pages they went to after they got there, and what page they were on when they left your website. What terms did they use on a search engine to get to your website? Which of your organizations that you have links on send traffic back to your website? All of those questions are incredibly important because the more educated you become about your own website, the better decisions you'll be able to make and the better choices you'll be able to make in terms of what form of marketing you'll want to look at. Finally, blogs. And, I keep coming back to that. And there's a bigger reason for that here in a few minutes. But how many of your websites have a blog? Yes or no? How often do you use that blog? Weekly? Monthly? Have you put a new blog entry on there? And those are the kind of things that you ask yourself and say, well, why is all of this important? Well, one of the things that we have found with websites and web marketing is that there becomes a pattern. A lot of times you may have heard the term inbound marketing or outbound marketing, push versus pull, social media marketing, and all of it comes down to some very basic flow. There is your website. That website is this lovely little center point. It's the choke point, it's the fulcrum. It's the center of your entire web presence. If you think Facebook is more important than your website, how much have you sold on Facebook? When was the last time someone made a purchase through Facebook to your company? So you have everything from referring sites, trade organizations, chambers of commerce, local churches, whatever you have is directing traffic down to your website. Search engines, Google, understanding how people are searching. When was the last time you only put 1 or 2 words into a Google search? How many of you actually just ask Google a question? Does your website answer that question you just asked, Google? Email newsletters. Quick show of hands. How many of you actually have email newsletters that you send out on a regular basis? And if you're my customer, you're not allowed to answer that because you already have the answer. But then you also have SEM or PPC, search engine marketing or pay-per-click marketing. That's your web advertising. Do you have a banner ad running with a trade publication? Have you looked at Google's pay-per-click via AdWords? Have you gone out to research other blogs or other platforms that could start directing traffic back to your website? And finally, social media. Facebook, Twitter. Yes, I like Twitter. LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, Google+. Well, not really Google+. But all of this ultimately puts everything, all the traffic into a funnel that goes back to your website. At your website, that's where you're going to have your product overviews, your white papers, case studies, testimonials, products and services. This is where you're going to teach everybody. Everything comes back to your website for one simple reason. People can take action from your website. How often do people take action from Twitter? How often do people take action from something on LinkedIn? The answer is not very much. And so all of these things up here become your marketing vehicles. And a very important concept to remember about your marketing vehicles is velocity. Speed versus velocity. Quick high school physics question. How many of you remember the difference between speed versus velocity? Speed. I can be running 55 miles an hour. I'd be a heck of a lot thinner. But I'm not going anywhere. So if I said I'm running 55 miles an hour that way, I'm now going somewhere. And that's where all of these marketing vehicles come into play. They take you somewhere. When you do a Facebook post, does it link back to your website? When you send out that LinkedIn update, does it go back to your website? Do you try to tackle and pack all of your email newsletter, your email newsletter into one email? Or do you just tease them and give them a link back to your website? How are you using those marketing vehicles to better your web traffic? Big old plasma rocket engine. You want to power your marketing vehicles back to your website. You want to give as much speed, force, and directionality to your marketing vehicles as possible. Because we talk about all of these marketing vehicles and we talk about all of this effort. The question is like all of these vehicles, it comes down to one thing. What powers all of it? What's the gasoline in the engine? What's the fuel for the rockets? And it comes down to a simple expression. Awesome content. Awesome. Not just good, but you want awesome content. You want content that people can't look away from. But my business is boring. Is it? Is it boring enough? Well, if it was so boring, why is there a trade publication? If it's so boring, why are there how many trade shows per year? All of this thing comes into play because somebody's interested in it. So when you take that whole idea of getting cut off by an AC vent, but when you start looking at all of your different marketing vehicles and how they factor into going into that funnel, saying, okay, I want to power all of these things with as much great content as possible. And so you start asking a simple question. I'll say, okay, that's a great idea. How? And as I'm going through this, and I apologize, I should have prefaced this. The number one cure for insomnia is listening to me drone on. So as I'm going through this stuff, if you have questions, don't hesitate to throw up your hand, ask a question. I'm not a college professor, but I played one on TV once. Feel free to ask questions. So, how do we generate awesome content? How do we be more awesome? Have you turned around and asked your customers questions? How many times have your salespeople said, oh, I always get the same questions on the phone? They're always asking the same thing. Well, how many people have gone to your website with that same question and left without contacting you? How many people have turned around and looked into things in your industry and not reached out to you? When was the last time you said thanks to an employee by giving them a little bit of kudos on the website? Hey, so-and-so just celebrated 10 years with us. As silly as that sounds, A, it's a great morale booster, and B, how many of your customers like to know more about your employees? We're all voyeuristic by nature. And don't take that in a 50 Shades direction. That's not what I'm talking about. We all like to look at things. We're all curious about who works where. It doesn't matter if it is a one-man band, cottage industry, or a corporation of hundreds of people. Always in the top pages are the staff profiles. People like to know who they're working with. As you're going through your Google Analytics reports, hopefully you do go through your Google Analytics reports, go through and look at some of those top pages. What are in those top pages? Probably you're going to find those staff profiles. Someone picks up the phone, they want to get a good idea of who they're going to be talking to. Have you put that kind of content on your website? We've determined that, yes, the top 10 questions, the top 10 things, but also people are coming to your business because they trust you. They think you know more than other people about your business. People want to get engaged. So they want to know the inside stuff. What's the secret sauce? How can we better engage? What's the tips, the tricks, the back door? How do I get a little bit more, a little bit better? Reward those people who are engaging with you by giving them that. Reward someone who goes to your blog and reads it or clicks on your email thing. Reward them by saying, hey, here's the inside stuff. Well, sometimes a lot of business owners say, I don't want to give away the farm. You can still give away ideas, secrets, and insights without giving up proprietary information. Reward people who are coming and engaging and looking for more out of your business. But just as we talked about, people love the voyeuristic nature of who's there, who am I talking to. They want to know what you've done. Tell me a success story. How many of you have young kids? Mine are 9 and 7. 2 boys, boys. Everything's a gun, sword. Whether it's a stick, a snowball, snowballs or grenades. One lands within 5 feet of you, you've got to fall over dead. The whole point is, they want to hear a success story. Daddy, tell me a bedtime story. They don't want to hear about the big bad wolf that actually ate Red Riding Hood. No, they want to hear a happy story. People coming to your website also want to hear that happen. Tell me a success story. Tell me something how you overcame a huge challenge, faced adversity, overcame and really delivered the goods. Tell me a success story. And as you start going through and looking at all of these little insights and things, all of a sudden, your business isn't so boring. All of a sudden, hey, we have things to talk about. All of a sudden, you're writing things down and, oh man, I have a half a page of ideas. What do I do with them? But for every cool and good idea that you're coming up with, you might have customers, fans, donors, people in your industry community that might also have even cooler ideas of something to do with your product or your service. When was the last time you gave your customers the opportunity to chime in and give you some really cool stories? The whole concept of user-submitted content or user-generated content shouldn't be overlooked. Don't be afraid to ask your chief engineer, hey, you know what? Can you write up maybe 200 words on what makes this process so awesome? Why not go to one of your biggest customers and say, hey, you know what? You've been using our product for 8 years. You love it. You've referred people to us. You know what? Can you give me an example of how it works for you? And don't be afraid to have them write it and say, hey, we're going to let you put it on your website. We'll put it on our website. We'll also submit it maybe as a news release. We're going to spread the love around and see maybe even a trade publication would be interested in the situation. And as we talk about all of this, how many of you confess? How many of you consider yourselves a proficient writer? I'm keeping my hand down. Because if I have to have 2 different people proofread anything before I'm allowed to post it on the web, ask Sarah. She's done some of the first proofing that is done, and I just get the no. There are arguments, almost fist fights over common usage. But you know what? Thank God for me. It's more than text. Good content can be pictures. If you look at this, that ends up being kind of a cruddy resolution picture. It's a picture of Door County Coffee up in Carlsville in Door County. And they do a fantastic job on their Facebook page in terms of showing people enjoying a great cup of coffee. Last November, when they got their first big snowstorm, they ran outside and took a quick picture of everyone saying, hey, we finally got snow. I don't think they're doing that right now. But they all showed it with their cups of coffee. Isn't this the perfect weather to enjoy coffee? They put this picture up there, and they get twice as many likes, shares, and comments than they do when they put up a post about, hey, this is the next sale. Why? People want to see other people. People want to be part of the experience. They want to see those pictures, see them engaging with their product. But moving pictures are even better. Pictures worth 1,000 words, and video, 72 pictures or 24 pictures per second. Fantastic impact. One of our clients, and this is going to be a shameless plug for Lakeland Animal Shelter, they're in the midst of raising money for building a desperately needed new building. And we worked with them in putting together a fantastic donor video. And the first 24 hours that video was on the web, it received 1,500 views, and looked at how that video will impact their fundraising efforts. It's going to be fantastic. 1,500 views in the first 24 hours. The Facebook post that announced that video had over 300 shares. And so, is it the fact that, how can you say no to puppies and kittens and dire situations of loving need? It's tough, but that's not what shared it. People related, they understood and wanted to share that experience. So as you're looking at generating content, how often do you have something, whether it's a product demonstration video? Hey, this is a quick way to clear a paper jam out of our printers. This is what it's like to go whipping down a zip line at 35, 40 miles an hour. Maybe holding one of those little pinwheels like the Geico pig did. And so as you go through and start looking at all the different options you have for generating great content, don't just look at text. Look at pictures. Sometimes a silly staff picture will be your most prominent and successful post you can put out there, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that. Why? People want to see you. People want to be part of your organization. They want to have fun. Even when you're doing business-to-business marketing, people want to have fun. Even if you're selling encyclopedias still, people want to have fun. And that's kind of one of the things that, as you look at all these things, when we say we want to drive engagement, we want to drive that interaction, we want to drive those things that make it fun to be online. Because again, getting back to that speed versus velocity, they see something fun on your Facebook post. Yes, it's got a cool picture. Oh, that video is so heartbreaking. But all of a sudden, there's a link there. There's a call to action. This is what we can do about it. I can click this link. I can get more information. I can find out where to send the check. I can find out where to place my order. I can find out what other products do they have that might suit my needs. Oh, this is only the mid-grade product. What's the premium product? All of a sudden, you've taken them from that marketing vehicle, taken them to your website, and given them a place to continue the experience. So how do you roll this content out? You make sure your website gets updated. One of the things Google really pushes in terms of what makes your site more successful, freshness counts. You wouldn't buy an apple that's been sitting on the shelf for 30 days. People aren't interested in blogs that have sat idle for 30 days. They want new content. They want to see what's changed. You have a group surrounding you, a community interested in your industry. Those who are closest with you are probably on your email marketing list. Don't abuse it, but also don't ignore them. It's okay to send something out once a month. It's okay to say, hey, this is really cool, what's going on, make sure you get here. Make sure you treat those people, they're your inside crew. Hey, you're on our mailing list. Shh, I got a secret. We're gonna have a sale. we've got an exclusive event only for those of you who are on our email list. It's exclusivity. You're treating them as people who are important. You're customers. You're pushing that engagement and you're taking it to the next level. The next range out are those people who are with you on Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are the people who are not just casually looking at your information. They're the people who are clicking on things, sharing things, liking things. The people who are engaging with you on a regular basis. When you're posting, don't just post when you feel like it. How many of your businesses or organizations have a Facebook page? How many of you know the best time of day to post? Have you gone through and thought about, when do I get more engagement? When do I get more clicks? When do people say, I want more? Is it 8 to 5? Probably not. I know, as strange as it sounds, 7 p.m. on Facebook, man, you see people going nuts. How many of you kids are in bed and you sit down and you're ready to watch some TV? Is your phone or iPad with you? Be honest. Come on. They've actually come up with a whole term for it. It's called second screening. A lot of TV shows and a lot of networks have caught on to this and have actual streaming content separate online to enhance your viewing pleasure while you have your iPad with you while watching Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, all those fun things. My wife says Bachelor has something fun, but yeah. Reality TV, it's almost like an oxymoron. But as you get out there, beyond your Facebook and your LinkedIn connections, you have Twitter. How many of you have a Twitter account? How often do you update it? How often?
5 times a day.
Fantastic. I love me my Twitter. But who do you reach with Twitter? Are they your close personal connections? More often than not, no. They're going to be your wider industry connections. That's going to be possibly even your prospecting. Those are going to be people who that you might be arm's length with that you've run into at a trade show or a networking event. Those are the people who are going to help you reach out and get new connections. We call it, we sometimes refer to it as generational sharing. Facebook, LinkedIn, that's all one generation out. You can reach out, you put a post onto your Facebook page, everyone connected with your Facebook page, actually technically only about 10% because Facebook's algorithms really suck right now, will see that feed. So where Twitter comes into play is it's so easy to share a tweet. Yes, you can go so many different places with jokes about Twitter tweeting and retweeting, modified tweets, partial tweets. But you look at that and say, that's so easy to share, that's going to very easily compound my reach. So I may send something out. We have just shy of 2,000 followers on Twitter. But what I love is that can get picked up by someone who has 10,000 followers on Twitter, and immediately suddenly your little video update or your little cute picture suddenly has a reach beyond anything you could pay for. And I don't want to give up on traditional media. Newspapers still do have a following. Don't be afraid to to send your news releases to the local papers. Don't be afraid to have those relationships with a reporter. Take one out to lunch. See if you can get them to pay for it. But form those connections. Traditional media connections still deliver returns. They're harder to quantify. They're not always as fantastic, but they can be there when you need them. And we've been talking a little bit about social media. And that's kind of one of the things that we get asked a lot. How many different social media platforms are you on? Does your business have 4 platforms? Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and maybe Instagram? Do you know which ones get the best engagement? Are all of them worth your time? And those are some of the things that, one of the things that we do is we try to help you assess all of that. Which platforms are right? Do I have a good audience on Facebook? Is Twitter a better platform? Does Pinterest work for me? I'm a guy, so Pinterest just, I'm not wired for Pinterest. It's a platform that I think about right now, the user breakdown is 70% women, 30% men. So I mean, those are the kind of things that you look at. You start assessing which platforms is right. How often? How often are you updating Facebook? Daily? More frequently? Less frequently? Weekly? Monthly? Finding out how often your community wants to talk, when they want to talk. We mentioned earlier, how often have you sat down and looked at Facebook's insights to see what posts get the most engagement? What time of day? What type of content? Do pictures do better than video? What gets shared more? Have you ever tried running a contest? And if you ever do run a contest on Facebook, they are wildly stringent about the terms of service. It's like reading a legal contract, but then that's what it is. But you violate that, and oh man, that comes down so fast your head will spin. So make sure that you, when you do run contests, you check out Facebook's terms of service first. Is it working? And this is probably one of the biggest challenges that a lot of businesses have. Let me, again, show of hands, who has a Facebook page? Okay, I'm gonna pick on you, sir, sorry. Why are you on Facebook? Yeah. Sorry, there's no one behind you. I don't rate that big of a crowd right now.
To, I guess, just keep people posted on what's going on in the business. We do a lot of pictures.
What's your business, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know.
Oh, fantastic.
You did our logo.
Yes, I remember very well.
It's a great logo. We get a lot of compliments.
And
We post quite a bit.
how do you assess how much traction or traffic those posts generate?
You know, I'm not the person who kind of manages, monitors it, but they report back to me.
Okay.
They'll say there's certain ones that you can see the likes will go up and the number of people that share it. It's almost like certain campaigns will do.
Oh, fantastic. One of the biggest challenges with so much of social media is we'll get asked the question of what's the return on my investment, and sometimes that's very frustrating, as I indicated before. But as you look at each one of your efforts, whether it be Facebook pictures, whether it be Twitter, you have the opportunity to see the numbers. Start becoming a data hound. Start learning to look at your insights, looking at how well things perform. Trust but verify. Don't take Facebook at its word. Don't take Twitter at its word. Don't believe everything Instagram is telling you. What I mean by that is you're going to want to turn around and corroborate that with your Google Analytics. Find out, okay, according to Facebook, this got 25 clicks through to my link back to my website. I go back to Google Analytics. Does that line up? On Analytics, did that turn around? What was the behavior of those people? Did they go to the link, that's nice, and bounce away? Or did they stick around? Did they look more into your website? And with analytics, you can tell that. What numbers count? And I'm going to dive into this a little bit more, but don't get hung up on your followers. Don't get hung up on your likes. Don't get hung up on how many followers you have on Instagram. Because in all honesty, we have clients that have Facebook accounts that only have maybe 300 or so likes, but see 5, 6, 7 times more engagement than people who have thousands of likes. And that's what's going to be important. Making sure you understand what numbers count. But you know what? There's a lot of numbers out there. Statistics can be made to say pretty much anything. I mean, we just went through an election cycle. We're going to be going into a presidential election cycle. We're going to be pummeled with statistics that are going to be turned to made to say anything. So beware of fake numbers. I make the joke, beware of the fake awesome. Never, ever, ever, I will find a ruler, come find you and wrap you on the knuckles like a Catholic nun of old. Pay for emails, followers, or fans. They're fake. If you, especially a few months ago, there were a lot of discussions and a lot of points of people talking about, oh, we just found out 30% of our Twitter followers are fake. Well, we paid a lot of money for those followers. Yeah, I've got a bridge to sell you. A lot of times you'll hear, especially search engine optimization companies, and I'm not the world's biggest fan of SEO, I'll be upfront with that. There's some very reputable and fantastic search engine optimization providers out there, but there are a lot of snake oil salesmen. If you ever hear someone tell you, we'll put you on the first page of Google, run. Not slowly. Hang up the phone. Delete the phone number. If they sent you an email, unsubscribe. Because bottom line, that doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of continuous work. How many of, especially service businesses, live and die by reviews? Google reviews, TripAdvisor, Yelp. I'd say Urban Spoon, but they just closed. Go ahead, you get it. One of the things that we get asked all the time, well, can I call TripAdvisor and just pay to have this removed? It does not work that way. You don't want it to work that way. One of the biggest traps that so many people fall into is, well, I want to delete the bad review. No, you don't. Did you respond to the bad review? Did you find out about the bad review? How are you engaging? Because more often than not, if someone posts a bad review and you turn around and follow up with it and say, hey, I'm sorry. Sorry you had a bad experience. What can we do to make it up to you? That gesture right there means more to an online viewer than a positive review. Why? It shows you care. It shows you're paying attention. It shows you value the experience of everybody that is your customer. You don't want to remove bad reviews. Those who say you can pay to remove bad reviews means pay us a whole ton of money and we'll have a bunch of people in Southeast Asia jump onto Yelp and pummel it with like 50 or 60 positive reviews. Does not work. Always choose your KPIs, key performance indicators. Out of all of this, as you dive through and go into the world of web marketing, immediately in your mind, set up and establish what are your benchmarks? What are your key performance indicators? Is it going to be the number of leads you receive? Is it going to be the percentage of sales? Is it going to be an increase in our client list? These are all things that come together that you need to determine to assess how well your web marketing is doing. Probably the number one thing people fail to start with a web marketing project or do any kind of marketing whatsoever is look at saying, how can I tell if this works? You've been listening to me drone for quite a while. One of the things that we want to find out is, what are some of your challenges? What questions do you have? What can we do to help? Either everybody's asleep or we're in good shape. Go ahead. Yep. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What you're asking is, how do you deal with business owners that do not want to get on the information superhighway, or the internet's a fad? Very good question. Not an easy answer. One of the things that is going to be critical is probably finding out some kind of way to test the whole thing. Of saying, okay, look, let us try this. If we deliver that, can we move forward? Your competitor did this. They got that. You missed out. You could probably turn it into, this sounds rather nefarious, but it's not meant so. You can turn it into a bait and switch situation. Your vendor is looking, hey, we want to cross promote. Use you as a case study. Hey, can bring us new customers. Maybe establish a threshold and say, okay, what will it take for you to believe this is effective? How much does the needle need to move? Because currently, what are your marketing outreaches? Are none? Yep.
And I look at other people on the cool website, and it just seems very difficult. We're at a crossroads. Something needs to
Yeah.
change. We need to move forward.
With that in mind, have you ever seen a more applicable word of mouth tool than social media? I mean, how many, if you're in the class reunion business, I'm sure you are cursing Facebook because everybody who wanted to make connections again have already reconnected on Facebook, they're not interested in all piling in somewhere. How does that apply to you? If you're generating word of mouth, something that goes well, people want to talk about, well, right now they don't turn around and call their buddy, hey, we just had a great experience. No, they're going to whip out their phone and say, hey, this really went well on Facebook. If you're missing it, you're in architectural. Pictures. Pinterest, Instagram, house.
Well, how is that? I've seen that, I see other builders on it.
Because you have an advantage over builders. Builders have to build it first. You don't. You can sell the idea. And that, it becomes wildly more popular, wildly more proactive. Because once someone buys the dream, then they'll buy the builder. Go ahead.
I have a question, it's always been my thought, and I need to know if you feel the same. Is a poor or poorly maintained website that's not kept active at all more detrimental to you than no website at all?
Yes.
That's my feeling.
Nothing is more frustrating to a user than jumping onto a news page and saying, catch us at the 2012 Expo.
Right. Or to see a 2012 Twitter. No.
Regretfully, that's far more common. But yes, in terms of getting out, and when I say freshness counts with Google, freshness counts with users as well. We as consumers, we as individuals are incredibly intolerant of out-of-date materials. We no longer put up with things that are irrelevant, out of date.
Because we live in an instant world.
Absolutely instant world. It was not a real great choice, but we had a babysitter that let our boys watch Spaceballs. Let me tell you, there's like now a week's schedule of conversations we need to have with those boys about what was said in that movie. But there's a tiny little scene in that movie, because I had to rewatch it again. I hadn't seen the movie in like 15 years. Rewatched that movie, and it struck me as hilarious, the scene where they grab the movie that they're filming and put it in the VCR and say, fast forward, oh, we're here right now. Now? Yes, right now. Whatever we say now happens now. And they go through this whole little kind of vaudeville-esque kind of scene and things like that, but that's exactly what we're at from a consumer standpoint. People want it right now, they want to know it's real, and they want to know it applies to me. And so that's kind of exactly where you get onto a website that, and I'm going to go one better, that say not only out of date, but last year we crossed the line. There is more traffic over mobile devices than desktop devices. So, dare I say, if your website is not just out of date, if your website doesn't show up well on someone's iPad or mobile device, you are even more crippled. And that's one of the things that is even more biting about it. It's people have become so intolerant of those kind of situations that it puts the onus even more on the businesses,
That is
especially in a B2C environment.
so true.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I have a lot of success with Pinterest at the moment,
Yep.
but I've heard that Instagram is going to overtake that. How do you migrate, or do you do a parallel? How do you manage those different medias for the future?
Instagram and Pinterest are apples and oranges. And what I mean by that is, while they're both very visually based and they're both post-based, Pinterest allows you to gather ideas together and put them under one pin. Instagram is very immediate and almost single serve in how it performs. So yes, you can have an Instagram account, but people aren't going to Instagram and browsing your photo history and going deep into that. No, Instagram is something, I got it right now. I want to look at it right now. And that's some of the challenges, because just as you have Instagram and Pinterest coming, you also have Snapchat coming up very quickly. That is the next level beyond, because it just doesn't do photos, it also does video interest. Are they just looking at one-off photos and leaving, or are they looking at your entire board or pin or what have you? How are they sharing or engaging with that? If it's only in single serve situations, then yes, maybe Instagram might serve you very well, but how are you getting those photos there? How are you sharing them? Because Instagram is more of an enabling social media platform. It's not really a standalone. You use Instagram in conjunction with Facebook, or you use Instagram in conjunction with Twitter. So it becomes kind of a balancing question, but a very good one. Any other questions? Go ahead.
So we just have new sites that came out for all our locations. We have 3 locations and then 1 kind of holding company.
Okay.
And so we have 4 sites, and they're designed, and then I added them on WordPress. So, but can you talk at all about sort of when is the right time to direct to which one of those sites? Because our food group website has all 3 of the locations listed on it and a lot of the same content, and then obviously each location has some of their own content as well.
Oh, absolutely. Cross promotion is very, very important. And one of the things that you also want to look at, and kind of more of a cautionary table, is beware of duplicate content. Because if you're overly duplicating content, Google may very well ding you for that. So what you'll want to look at doing is making sure your content is varied just enough, so you're not having the same About Us panel on each one of the things. So you'll want to look at that kind of right away with that. But then one of the things that becomes very helpful and important is that cross-referencing. If one website has an article talking about something that references something back on the other website, link it. Make sure that there is a beautiful, brilliant, and very sticky spider web connecting those websites. The link traffic will pay off, but also, especially if you want to cross-promote, start looking at where your different audiences are at. How do you utilize one audience to possibly build another? And hopefully that answered it.
Because I can do it, but it just, and sometimes it seems like I should be doing the company-wide site versus, just my location and things like that.
That becomes a very more of a hyper-specific situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of where, if you can find ways, the old expression, a rising tide floats all boats, that's kind of where, if you can start looking at those sites as addressing individual niches, and then using the general site to address the wider audience. But again, that also comes into what content is being developed for which niche, and how you're deploying that, and are there opportunities to cross-reference, and will those cross-references really bear any fruit? Any other questions? Go ahead.
Just a really basic, excuse me, Twitter question. So I'm just wondering, so when you hashtag this, hashtag that, hashtag blah, 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 all these words, are those like just keywords that people use like to search, and then your tweet shows up?
Yes. What hashtags are, and it's not just Twitter, hashtags have been adopted by all the other social media platforms. A hashtag is a method of grouping a conversation together where it can be connected by people who are not otherwise connected. I can follow a hashtag on Twitter and become engaged with people that I'm not already engaged with. People I've never heard of, but hey, we all want to talk about ranch dressing or something like that. It all comes together there. So the other thing to kind of be careful of, hashtags are also used for sarcasm. And so sometimes you might have, like, hashtag just saying. You can have, a lot of times hashtags are also used to pass along sarcastic comments. So one of the things that you do in terms of looking at hashtags is if you have a conversation that you want to be a part of that has a hashtag, it's far more effective to join a hashtag that's already existing than to try and start your own or force your own to get started. And hashtags can be very, very effective for getting your message out to a wider audience that you may not be connected to already. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
But yeah, hashtags are funny little creatures. While they were originally intended to be a fantastic way of grouping communications, they've also become a way of passing along sarcasm. So it's always kind of tough to look at and assess, okay, what's a real hashtag and what's someone just making a snide comment. Any other questions? Fantastic. I want to thank Wceda for letting me talk, and you guys have been a fantastic audience. Thank you, and thank you for the questions. If anyone has any questions, I'll be sticking around for a little while. Other than that, drive safely, stay warm, and have a great day.